Greetings fellow Filipinos against corruption and kleptocrats or packers. Did you know that the stolen wealth by corrupt government officials and kleptos from the Philippines can pay the country's national debt? I would like to disclose that the loan information presented on this video was mostly sourced online from multilateral institutions e.g., World Bank, WB, Asian Development Bank, ADB, and International Monetary Fund, IMF. The information about bilateral loans was sourced from specific countries like Japan, Japan International Cooperation Agency or JICA, China, China Exim Bank, and the United States. The information about international bonds is available online from Global Bonds, Eurobonds, Samurai Bonds, and Panda Bonds issued to foreign investors. Corruption and embezzlement have long plagued the Philippine government, siphoning off critical resources that could otherwise be used for development and debt reduction. The Philippines' national debt, which stands at approximately 14.5 pesos to 15.5 trillion pesos as of 2023, has been primarily accumulated through domestic and external borrowing to fund projects such as pandemic recovery, infrastructure development, and economic stimulus programs. However, an often overlooked factor in the country's mounting debt is the significant financial losses due to corruption, which could otherwise serve as a potential resource to alleviate the national debt. This video explores how the wealth lost to corruption could help pay down both external and internal debts and the broader implications for the nation's financial health. Estimates suggest that corruption costs the Philippines between 10 to 20% of its national budget annually. With a 2023 national budget of 5.268 trillion pesos, this translates to an annual loss of 526.8 billion pesos to 1.053 trillion pesos. Corruption is most rampant in sectors such as infrastructure, where overpricing, ghost projects, and rigged bidding processes are common, customs and taxation, where smuggling and tax evasion cause losses of 250 pesos to 400 billion pesos per year, and social services, where leaked funds undermine programs designed to alleviate poverty and improve education and health. These figures highlight a stark contrast between the funds lost to corruption and the government's actual fiscal needs. If corruption were curtailed and these funds were reallocated, it could significantly reduce the country's debt burden, particularly in the context of the large fiscal gaps and debt servicing requirements that exist. The Philippines' external debt, amounting to approximately 4.50 pesos to 5 trillion pesos in 2023, comes from multilateral institutions, bilateral loans, and international bonds. On the domestic front, about 68 to 70% of the national debt is sourced from government securities, loans from domestic banks, and borrowings from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas (BSP). If corruption losses were reduced, this would free up substantial resources, which could be repurposed to reduce the national debt. For example, the 1 trillion pesos in annual corruption losses, if redirected, could pay for a significant portion of the debt servicing cost, which stands at around 1.6 trillion pesos annually. This amount is critical in paying interest on both internal and external loans. Moreover, if these savings were invested in productive areas such as infrastructure and social services, it would contribute to economic growth, increasing tax revenues and further easing the debt burden. Redirecting the funds lost to corruption would not only help cover immediate debt payments but also support long-term fiscal sustainability. By improving governance, transparency, and accountability, the Philippines could reduce borrowing needs, particularly for projects that currently rely heavily on loans. This would result in lower debt servicing costs in the future and create a more favorable fiscal space for funding social services and public infrastructure without resorting to external borrowing. Furthermore, reducing corruption would improve investor confidence and credit ratings, which in turn could lead to lower interest rates on future borrowings. This would reduce the overall cost of debt, further alleviating the strain on the national budget. While the potential for redirecting stolen wealth to reduce debt is clear, Significant challenges remain in addressing the root causes of corruption. The wealth stolen through corruption in the Philippines represents a massive untapped resource that could help alleviate the country's national debt. If the government successfully curtails corruption and redirects the funds lost to embezzlement and mismanagement, it could reduce the fiscal pressures from debt servicing and create a more sustainable economic future. This is probably the best time to ask you to subscribe to this channel to grow our community of Packers or Filipinos against corruption and kleptocracy. If we get big enough in size through subscription, we will have a louder voice to be heard by those in political power in the Philippines. There is hope in fighting corruption in the Philippines, and we must pursue our ideas. See you in the next episode of KleptoStop.Philippines. Be blessed.